Hello, my name is Charles, and in today's video, we're going to take a scientific look at what is ADHD. Right, I'm going to answer that question because it pops up a lot in modern day. There's a lot of talk about like what exactly it is, why do so many people have it, and all this stuff. There's just so much talk about it, and it's better instead of looking at like TikTok for just garbage or stuff like that. It's better to take a real scientific look and just look at the literature and be like, what actually is it and how does it manifest in people's lives and how do you help yourself if you have it? So that's what today's video is going to be about. So to start off, right, as of the most recent edition of the DSM-5 published in 2022, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is classified as a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by persistent pattern of inattention or hyperactivity/impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development. So let's say they were going to diagnose you, right? Let's say you watch a TikTok or you're thinking like, do I have ADHD? Like what exactly does that mean? Well, for the inattention, it's 6 or more of the following symptoms, and 5 of those for 17 and older. And it has like a negative impact on your functioning. So often fails to give close attention to details, makes careless mistakes, often has difficulty sustaining attention, often does not seem to listen when spoken to directly, often does not follow through on instruction or finish tasks, often has difficulty organizing tasks and activity, avoids or dislikes tasks requiring sustained mental effort, often loses things necessary for tasks or activity, easily distracted by extraneous stimuli, often forgetful in daily activities. And if it's the hyperactivity or impulsivity type, it's 6 or more of the symptoms. And 5 for those 17 and older. So often fidgets or taps hands or feet, leaves seat in situation when remaining seated is expected, runs or climbs in inappropriate situations, unable to play or engage in leisure activities quietly, often on the go or acts as if driven by a motor, talks excessively, blurts out answers, has difficulty waiting their turn, interrupts or intrudes on others. So, I mean, there's some more to it, but that's basically, like the actual clinical definition. Now, if we, understanding that is the clinical definition, what is some of the like neuroscience of today saying about ADHD? Like, what are some of the differences if you have like a neurotypical or a normal brain and like an ADHD brain? And just to give you like a clearer kind of picture. So first is like a chemical difference with ADHD. There's studies that suggest, and as always, I will put all the research and evidence and articles in the description below in a nice little bibliography. It'll be easy to read. But the first is a chemical difference. So with ADHD brains, they hypothesize there are lower levels of dopamine and norepinephrine in the ADHD brain, primarily in like the frontal and prefrontal lobe area, probably other areas, because those are linked with like motivation, alertness, focus, regulating impulses, stuff like that. Second is in the ADHD brain, the default mode network is more activated. Now, the default mode network is associated with like rumination, daydreaming, kind of in your head, just imagining stuff, or it's like that self-talk, that stuff. You're not present in the moment, essentially. You're not focused. And so there's also deficits in the neural networks linked to attention and executive function in children and adults with ADHD. And primarily in the frontal lobe, which you imagine like frontal lobe and prefrontal cortex are kind of like the CEO of the brain. And that is the largest part of the brain affected by ADHD. And so if we're wondering like what are neurotransmitters, just to give you some like definition, when I say like dopamine and norepinephrine are lower with people with ADHD, these are like chemical messengers or like little chemicals that transmit signals from nerve cells to other part to either excite, to either make more more signals happen or less signals happen, like inhibitory. And they also think that less Noradrenaline is in the prefrontal cortex, and the prefrontal cortex has like inhibitory control, and it also suppresses distractions and impulses. So if you notice, like you focus for 20 minutes and then you can't, suppress, like you just immediately, I want to scroll on TikTok, I want to eat, McDonald's, I want to, you just get bored and you go do something else. That is your brain not inhibiting those impulses. So, obviously, the difficulty focusing is a part of ADHD, right? But if you're in your 20s, what does this look like? Like let's say you're a college student right now and you're studying, whatever subject you're studying, and you're like, how do I know if I have it? Or, how do I know if I even should think if I have it? Or what would that even look like? It'd be like, one, misplacing your stuff all the time, like your keys, your wallet, your papers, constantly looking for stuff. It'd be like time blindness. So you're forgetting dates and times for social plans, deadlines for homework, deadlines for work, right? You're underestimating the time needed to complete stuff. So let's say you're the guy who tells, your friend, hey, I'll be there. And I've fallen victim to this so many times. You tell your friend, you're like, hey, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Right, for the group hangout, you're there in 40 minutes because you're not estimating traffic properly and you're not estimating the time it takes to get there properly because your brain's just not doing it properly. 4, and this is mostly if you're like the impulsive type or the, hyperactive / impulsive, is like risky or impulsive behavior. So overspending, gambling, reckless driving, substance use. A lot of the time with substance use, it's kind of like self-medication. It's like my brain don't have enough dopamine, or my brain don't have enough norepinephrine, so I feel like I need to drink all this caffeine, or I need to use nicotine or stimulants to try to boost my levels to proper levels of a neurotypical, proper functioning individual. 5 would also be, struggle listening, like when your friend or partner, right? Sometimes you're a blurter. If you're blurting stuff out and you're like, I shouldn't have said that. Ooh, that was a bad one. We all have a friend who just blurts stuff out. Not the time and place. 6 is like if you easily are overwhelmed. So like you look at a task and your brain doesn't go like, okay, I need to do like 3 different tasks and breaks it down. It just goes, oh my gosh, I look at this thing, I'm too overwhelmed, too much, too explosion, I don't know how to do this. 7 is like nervous energy or fidgety. And this is when like, your restless legs, you're fidgeting all the time. You got the kid in the class who's like tapping his pen over and over and going click, clack, click, clack, click, clack. And it's like, oh my gosh. And then 8 is like, kind of emotional outbursts. If you notice, right, you don't have that emotional regulation. And there's random times where you have like an anger outburst or you cause disagreement. That can be some ADHD sometimes. So that's what it looks like. And now if you're like, oh my gosh, I may or may not have, like, that kind of sounds like me. Maybe I do. Or maybe it doesn't sound like you and you're like, I'm Jay Chillin. There's no way, Charles. I'm all good. If you're all good, then you're all good. But if you do think it may sound like you, what do? You're like, oh, what now? And so this video is a good first step to educating yourself. The first step should be educating yourself on what exactly it is. There's actually an amazing book you should now read. Is You Mean I'm Not Lazy, Stupid, or Crazy? By Kate Kelly and Peggy Ramundo, I think. And that outlines like all the different treatment modalities, meditation tips, what it's like as an adult with it. It's a really in-depth book, and I feel like it would help you greatly if you may think you have ADHD. 2 is to consider treatment. So, if you got ADHD, what do you have to lose to getting diagnosed and seeing if you do or don't? If you don't, you don't lose anything. And if you do, it was affecting you anyways, and now you're able to get help for it. And that's awesome. 3rd is like optimize the environment. So a clean room really helps. There's bottom-up attention and top-down attention. Top-down attention is when like you're choosing to consciously focus on something. Bottom-up is like something in the environment just pops your attention. When you have a really messy room with ADHD, your brain's putting extra effort to suppress all the distractions, to be able to focus, and it already struggles with that anyways. So take the load off your brain, make it easy to focus, clean your room, and then focus. 2nd is externalize time, so calendars, alarms, Just make it easy on yourself. You are going to mess up with the timing of things, and that is because a part of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus is not, like, your internal clock is not functioning properly. So just just externalize all the time. It makes everything easier. Then third is reduce the distractions. So if you're focused on a task, if you like, some people like music on, put your headphones on. If you like music, turn them on. If you don't, put headphones on, noise cancel, and just lock in. 4 is just use habits to your advantage, habits and systems. The part of the brain associated with like building habits is unaffected by ADHD. And it may be hard to form those habits, but know when you do form good habits, they are there to stay just like everybody else. So form solid habits of good sleep, good exercise, taking care of yourself, and even like, studying, or if you're a student, stuff like that. And then 5 is try to reflectively listen. Reflect to people, ask questions for clarification. Do your best to try to listen to people and not interrupt. And if you do interrupt, gently tell them, hey, you know what? I actually have ADHD. I'm struggling. I'm trying to learn how to, not interrupt. I apologize. Don't take it personally. I still really appreciate and love listening to you. Sometimes I just make mistakes. If they're an understanding, or if they're a true good friend or partner, they'll understand. No big deal. And then lastly is to not be too hard on yourself. It's tough. Life is tough already, right? And especially if you have something, it makes it even harder. So there's a beautiful Japanese idea known as Kaizen, and it's just like gradual improvement. So if you're just 1% better daily, you don't have to solve all of the world's problems, and you certainly don't have to solve all of your problems in an instant. So just think 1% better daily. If I'm 1% better daily over a long time horizon, I'll be good to go. Just slow, steady improvement. You don't have to fix everything. Just slowly, better daily. Kaizen. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Much love to you all. God bless, and I hope you have a wonderful